The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where they are devoted to conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Thursday, September 11th, and I'm Jimmy Kenyon, Center Director at NASA's Glenn Research Center. I'm pleased to introduce today's forum as part of Ohio's Space Week celebrations. Before I tell you about our guests, I must call attention to today's significance in history. As we pay tribute to those who lost their lives 24 years ago during the terrorist attacks and the wars that followed, we should also take a moment to appreciate the unity and resolve we found that day. Unity and determination are what makes us so special as a nation and what will get us back to the moon and on to Mars. The road to the moon and Mars goes through Ohio. Since the Wright brothers' first flight, our state has been at the forefront of aerospace innovation, and at NASA Glenn, we push the boundaries of what's possible and fuel discovery and innovation for the benefit of all. In addition to our technology and innovation, our people have played critical roles. We have more than 24 astronauts from Ohio, the likes of John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, Judith Resnick, and of course, Sunita, or Suni, Williams, who hails from Euclid and joins us at the City Club today. And now I'm looking at the students because who knows? Maybe a few future astronauts are with us today too. But in addition to Suni, we also have astronaut Doug Wheelock here to moderate today's conversation. That means you're getting to hear from not one, but two astronauts. So this is going to be a very special chat. But before they get started, just a little background. She is a retired U.S. Navy captain, aviator, and a test pilot, completing several deployments and logging more than 3,000 flight hours in over 30 different aircraft. During her time as an astronaut, she spent 608 days in space during 3 days aboard the International Space Station, logging 62 hours and 6 minutes of total spacewalk time during those missions. She holds the record for the most spacewalking time by a female astronaut and is in the top very few in space by any NASA astronaut. During her most recent stay aboard the International Space Station, astronaut Doug Wheelock served as her family representative. Wheelock, or Wheels, is a retired Army colonel and has logged 178 days on the space shuttle, the International Space Station, and Russia's Soyuz TMA-19 spacecraft. During his 2010 mission to the International Space Station, he became the first U.S. Army officer to command the station.
Cool.
And a little plug, if you don't get enough of them here today, both Suni and Wheels will be at the Discovery Days at Great Lakes Science Center tomorrow and Saturday. So in just a moment, we will hear more about each of these inspiring astronauts and learn about their lessons on leadership, perseverance, and the importance of space exploration today. A reminder for the live stream audience, if you have a question during the Q&A portion of the forum, you can text it to 330-541-5794, and City Club staff will try to work it into the program. And so now, members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Suni Williams and Doug Wheels Wheelock.
Thank you all. It's such an honor to be here. I'm not from Ohio, but I tell my wife, who is from Ohio, that I got here as quick as I could. I grew up in upstate New York and was a small boy when we landed Apollo 11 on the moon, so my life was changed from that moment. Several years later, in 1993, I ended up at the Naval Test Pilot School, Army helicopter pilot at the Navy Test Pilot School. It was January of 1993.
Go Navy.
This is what I'm getting to. Okay, so that January, which was how many years ago? That was 32 years ago. But who's counting?
No
Yes.
counting.
I ran into a young lady from Annapolis. Her name was Suni Williams. And we were in class together there at the Naval Test Pilot School in those early years. And Suni is amazing, and we've flown together on so many things. We were selected together as astronauts in 1998 as well, 5 years later. But one of my earliest memories of Suni, which is some of the things I'm going to talk about, she, of course, ran the Boston Marathon on the treadmill on the ISS in a harness built at NASA Glenn.
Wasn't the smartest thing I ever did.
But one of those very first days, we were at Patuxent River, Maryland, at the Naval Test Pilot School, and I was a little nervous. I was an Army guy in a world of Marine and Navy pilots, and so I was going for a run this one day at noon, and Suni, who I just met a couple days prior, she said, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm going for a run. You want?" She's going, "I'll go with you." So I was like, "Okay, cool. We'll get changed. Just meet you out front." So we get out there, and I'm all ready to go and kind of stretch, and Suni shows up, ready to go with bare feet, no shoes. And I said, "Where are your shoes?" And she goes, "I left them at home." And I said, "Do you need to go get them?" No, let's just go. We ran the perimeter road around Patuxent River Naval Air Station on the road, on the shoulder, with her in bare feet. I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is somebody I really got to get to know, this level. So, and the rest is sort of, well, I'm going to lead one more thing, because Navy, Army, and of course, you have to declare when you get to, and it's tough being an Army guy at the Naval Test Pilot School. But Suni and I, there's a tradition at the Army-Navy game that we would, one of the cool things we have at both academies are really cool bathrobes, and they're nice and plush, and they've got the school crest and everything here. And it has been tradition that you bet a bathrobe on the Army-Navy game with your Navy buddies, and so whoever loses has to come up with their school bathrobe and send it to. And of course, after we left Pax River, about 14 years in a row, our Navy beat Army in the game. So it was about 2 years after we had left, and Suni and I made the traditional bet. Okay, bathrobe on the game. And so I was off deployed, and to my house came this bathrobe to my wife, who opened the and I was overseas somewhere, and I had a call with her and on Skype, and she said, "Hey, there's a package here from Suni Williams." I said, "Oh, okay." It's like, go ahead and open it. I think Army won that year, so she owed me a bathrobe. And so my wife opens it, and here's a bathrobe and a little note from Suni with a heart on it. You know? And she's like, "Go Navy, beat Army," or something like that, you know. And so my wife, it was a few weeks before I got home, and I had some splaining to do.
I wasn't on her favorite list at that time.
But it started a friendship that's been really lifelong for us. We've flown together. We've been in situations as test pilots together that kind of tested your mettle. And Suni, I wanted to first ask you about your experience. You just had a incredibly different experience in this. As you remember, the Boeing Starliner was supposed to be a short duration mission. We were trying to get at least a 30-day mission, but it was started out 8 days at least to kind of prove out the life support systems and things like that. And then if things are going well, we'll extend to 30 days, and then bring the crew back home. Suni ended up staying for about 9 months. And so, Suni, I'd like you to share just sort of the humanity side of that, like being from Ohio and what you were taught in those early years about resilience and perseverance. Could you share just a little bit of some snippets from that experience?
Absolutely. I mean, it was an incredible experience. I feel very lucky. I was talking to some other friends, and I think you sometimes are at the wrong place at the wrong time, and maybe turn it into the right place at the right time. When we launched, it was a big deal. Like, first time people are in this spacecraft, and so like Butch and I were in there, and we're like, okay, we got this, we're ready to go on the launch. And then that happened 1 or 2 times because we had a couple delays even just getting off the launch pad. But we finally got there, and we were pretty excited about it, just to be up flying the spacecraft, and it worked amazing, perfect first day we were up there. Everything we were doing, like, we got to change seats where I got to fly the spacecraft for a little while. I was joking around, my task was to moon the sun because our solar panels are on the butt side of the spacecraft, and we were coming up with an idea of, without guidance from the system inside, how do you put that part of the spacecraft facing the sun? So we came up with an idea of just looking out the window and being able to pitch ourselves down. So precisely, I got our butt facing the sun, and we were mooning the sun, and power's generated. It was awesome. Butch did a couple other points for communication, and it was flying great. We were like so psyched when we went to bed. Now, we were freezing. The spacecraft was a little chilly, and the funny part about that night is, like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just a girl. I'm such a wimp. I'm like sort of cold. Like, why am I so cold? And then I hear Butch go, hey, can you hand me my boots? I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, are you cold? He's like, I'm a little cold. And then I was like on the side of the spacecraft with our spacesuits, 2 of them around me, like a bear, like in the bear skin. And he's like, hey, can you give me my spacesuit? So I'm like, okay, I'm justified in being so cold. So it was all good, all good. And so, but that was a minor thing. We'd just figure that out, like work with our environmental control team on that one. It wasn't terrible. It was just a little chillier than we had expected. So the next day we get ready to dock to the space station, and things started a little bit different that morning. The spacecraft is automated, so it's starting to do its own burns coming up to the docking axis, and we heard this like shotgun fire of the thrusters. Before it was just like chunk, 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 chunk. This time it was like like that. So we were like, something is a little bit wrong, and the spacecraft was trying really hard to get to the right place at the right time, and both of us, like, at that moment, knew that there was something a little bit wrong, right? So we're, not even having to really talk to each other. We're both like, this doesn't sound quite right. And then we were talking to our bigger team, the folks on the ground, mission control, and all the engineers who have been working on this. Hundreds, if not thousands of people have been working on this for many, many years. And I know that the experts are down there. We have a little, teeny periscope of how the spacecraft works, but that we knew the experts, the big family of experts, were there working on it. And we worked, I think that day was like one of the best days for how professional, how good a team can work together. They had us, hands on the controls, looking at the spacecraft, and then all of a sudden hands off the controls so they could shut the thruster down, start it back up again, get it back in the set. And one after another, we did this after we had lost a bunch of thrusters. And it was like so precise, so fast. It was so professional. It was awesome. So a great day. Like, even though it was a bad day, it was a great day because it was like, wow, this team can really work together, like really, really well. Like the best control team in the world. I don't think anybody's had to work that hard before to get a spacecraft docked to a space station. So an amazing day was docking. Obviously, there's this crazy video out there with crazy hair, almost as good as Doug's hair. Yeah. By the way, since 1993, he's had perfect hair. And, and my hair was like, wah, as we came in the space station. But it was such a great day to see friends there, to be docked. We knew that this was where we needed to be, while the whole team understood what was wrong with the spacecraft. I'll just jump ahead a little bit because the summer went on, right? And we had heard through friends and family that there was a little bit of craziness going on down here on the ground. People were saying all sorts of things about being stranded and this, that, the other thing. But us up there, we were able, great communications, we were able to even participate in some of the conversations and listen in to the technical discussions that were going on about the spacecraft. You know, of course we have our opinions, but we don't have actually the whole data set, and so we relied on the people on the ground to make the right decisions. But I think it was pretty obvious as the summer went on that the testing probably wasn't going to get there by the time the space station program had to make the call that we were coming back or not on the Starliner. One of the saddest days was watching Starliner fly away. We had worked so hard with not only the engineering team, but also the landing team. We knew those guys were all out in the field getting ready to, accept this spacecraft coming down in the desert. So cool. I just really wanted to land on airbags. It just seemed like such a cool way to land. And if you ever watch it, it's like poof, like a marshmallow just coming down and landing on a big marshmallow. So cool. But didn't get that opportunity, had to say goodbye, got our families. I think one of the biggest things is also you want to make sure your family is good with this and understands the situation that we're in. So both of us had sort of warmed up our families over the summer, so they knew by the time the decision was made that we weren't going to come home. And because of the space station alternates people, it wasn't going to be for another 4 or 5, 6 months. So everybody was okay with that, which was like such a warm, wonderful thing to feel that. They were like, you got this. This is, it's where you want to be. This is awesome. It's okay. Just take us along with you. I was like, okay. What a great support structure. I think that is really key. Family and friends who are just with you. That was really cool. And so then we just pivoted. Then you just got to do what you're assigned to do. With understanding that 2 people who were supposed to be on that spacecraft, Crew 9 that came up for us, were not. And they actually had to take themselves off of that mission. And it's a big team effort. Nobody does any of this by themselves. And so I never felt people ask us, do you feel stranded? I was like, and I've talked about it here, I think, for a little while. It's a huge team effort. And I never felt stranded because I knew people on the ground were working super hard to figure out a way for us to get home, and never felt left behind, always felt part of the whole situation. So I'm happy to be home, but I really do love it in space.
We knew that Sunny's just all smiles up there, so it's kind of funny that Sunny's husband, Mike, so I was her family support person. Mm-hmm. And so,
sorry, you had to put up with him.
No, that's okay. But Mike is also sort of a former Navy helicopter pilot as well, and a former U.S. Marshal as well. So he's kind of a tough guy. He doesn't really need the social support that most of us need. So we sort of had a fun time with it. Mike we're just dear friends now. But I remember as we went. I was calling him about every other day, and then it kind of like every week, and then once every couple of weeks, and then it was kind of once a month when it started. And so, Mike, it was so funny. I said, I need to talk to Mike to see how things are going, see if he needs anything. And so I'd call him up, and I said, hey, Mike, this is Wheels. He goes, Wheels, is this your monthly, your monthly emotional support call? So I said, I need your support, Mike. But just a tremendous family support structure. Could you share a little bit about your Ohio connection?
Yeah.
Because I've gotten a chance to meet, of course, Sunny's immediate family, but some of the extended family as well. Some of them are here today as well. And so, Sunny, could you just share sort of your Ohio connection?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I will just back up real quick and say Mike's from Toledo, so another Ohio connection here. So we've got Cleveland, we got Lake Erie covered, right? So just I was born here in Euclid. My mom's family, Slovenian. There was. I think the very tough side of us, right, the no shoes thing. I told them a story earlier today. I don't know, maybe the sort of not quite right thinking people, or the tough side. I don't know. But so my mom's family was here for a long time. They came over, of course, from Slovenia, and then were a big group of people down around the 185th Street, Euclid area. There's a bunch of Slovenians down there, a couple good places to get sausages and stuff like that. Not a shameful plug for sausages and pizza, but hey, you know the good things. And I grew up, when I was born, my brother, my sister, and I were all born here in Ohio. My dad immigrated to Ohio, went to Case Western, did his residency, and then was a doctor in the area. He got a really good job in Boston and couldn't say no, and sort of pulled my mom, a little bit kicking and screaming, from her family over to the Boston area. So we would come back here every holiday, and it was like I was mentioning earlier, it was like one of the best things to come on the highway. It was like, welcome to the Buckeye State, and where my grandparents lived, and a little further up, actually, in that other state of Michigan, was where my father's brother lived as well. So we, like I mentioned, we had pretty much Lake Erie area covered, and I have such great memories from all my cousins, coming here and being with all my cousins over the holidays.
That's amazing. Thank you to your family that's here as well. And I met some of you at Suni's first attempt at launch, and then some others, and a smaller number at the actual launch for Suni, and we were together with. That's another place where Mike was with your mom and some others at the essentially a public viewing site, and I got a call from our chief of the astronaut office, and he said, "Hey, Mike needs to be on the roof of the Launch Control Center with the other immediate family members." I was like, "Okay," and I said to Mike, "Mike, they want you to." "Yeah, I'm not doing that." I'm thinking like, "Yeah, okay." I'm staying here with Suni's mom, and that I was like, "Okay, Mike's not doing that." I was like, "Okay, fine." So I wanted to also, one of the cool things, so Suni and I have been astronauts since 1998, last century, so it's been 27 years. And I'm finding, and I think Suni's probably a similar mind, that I'm finding the joy in handing the torch to the next generation of astronauts, and I'm finding a lot of joy in training those folks to get ready for their exciting missions as well. Suni, if you could share, we've got a lot of students here, and probably a lot of aspiring astronauts, and so could you share your message of inspiration to these students, and actually kids of all ages?
Yep, yeah. I'm super excited for this next generation. And Wills and I are both helicopter pilots, so we are working on how to give the next group of younger astronauts a good vertical picture of landing on the moon, how to understand vertical descents, both on the moon and then getting ready to go to Mars, because there's no runways on the moon as far as I could tell, and there's no runways on Mars. So we're going to be landing in spacecraft vertically. So that's what our goal is right now, is to get these young astronauts ready to do that. But there's so much more that's going to go into getting us to the moon. Glenn is a big part of that with power generation and understanding how we can live sustainably in another place. But there's so many more questions that need to be answered, and we need young, innovative minds and ideas to help us understand that. And just reflecting on something Dan mentioned earlier, my biggest take-home, by the way, from this flight was people are good and people care about each other. Like, people I didn't even know come up to me. It's like, "Thank God you're home." And I was like, people care and people are good. We might have discussions, like heated discussions, have different opinions, and maybe just about how to solve technical problems as we're getting ready to go to the moon, or maybe even bigger problems that the world has to face. But people are good, and we need new young engineers to come in and try out their new ideas, defend their new ideas in front of other people, and put them into production. And so I'm psyched for this next generation. There's so much more. I wish I was 30 years younger or so, honestly, so to be part of all of this and to set the stage on this whole world as we look at leaving low Earth orbit, not only as a country, but as a species, as we get ready to go on to Mars. That's what we're working on. And we got to work together to be able to do that. And you guys have the show. We'll be there to help you a little bit if you need us every now and then, but you guys got it. And we're ready to watch you do great things.
I was talking to some of the students, thank you, Senator. I was talking to some of the students yesterday at Case Western when we were there, and my encouragement to them was, I want to be like Suni, because when you see the passion that she lives her life to. And so the encouragement that I'd like to give to our students that are here and listening online, that find something you love. Find something you love, and then work and study with so much passion that people cannot take their eyes off of you. That should be your goal, with whatever profession you choose. And when you do that, you end up like being like Suni, and people like me looking up to her. I want to be like that. I want to live my life with so fearlessly and with so much passion that people cannot take their eyes off of me. That's what I want, and that's what. And so,
You guys.
thank you. Yeah. So for our students, that should be your goal. Now, the first step in that is having a curious mind, opening your heart and opening your mind to new ideas. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be on a different path. And so sometimes that's hard for us to do. And sometimes, we're afraid of challenge, we're afraid of failure as humans. And so we train every day at NASA to be prepared for failure. In fact, not only is failure not an option, failure is inherent in our training as well. We practice failure. We fail our spaceships in sims. We fail our spaceships when we're practicing for various dynamic maneuvers, because we want to know when the astronauts get there, it feels like a simulation to them. And on the real day, when something breaks, they don't panic. So we teach our crews not to panic. That's step number one. And step number two, usually as humans, when something fails, we do this whether it's in a dynamic situation or in relationships. We do this in our lives. When something goes wrong and we lose something, our immediate reaction is to go after that, whatever was just lost. And in space, you can't do that. And so we train very intently at NASA to, when something goes wrong, we quickly triage what remains, what's left that's working, which includes your hands, your mind, and your crew members as well, because those are the things that are going to save the day. And the quicker, for our students, the quicker you can get to that type of arrangement and how you triage problems in your life, whether it's at school, in a relationship, in our family, something like that, that when you come with that mindset, it's like, what do we have that's still working, and how can I help be a part of this solution? So that would be my encouragement to young students out there as well.
Yeah, and also how do you learn from what just happened, right? So
Absolutely.
picking yourself up after a failure. I would say I was one to have many failures in my life. I didn't graduate college super easy. I went to a couple academic boards, pushing myself a little bit, but I learned from that, right? And I feel that way about Starliner, as a right now example. We learned so much from what we tested, what maybe we didn't test, what assumptions we made. And so all of those lessons learned, we can push into the next spacecraft, next generation of spacecraft, next generation of spacesuit that we're designing, what questions we can ask. And so I think it's also about failure. What do you do after there is a failure? Because inevitably everybody will have some stumbling block that you're going to go through. And then how do you pick yourself back up, and how do you learn lessons from all of that?
That's something, usually failure is not something we choose, but the way we react to it is certainly our choice, all the way down the line. So, Suni, one last question before we open it up to the audience. Suni ran the Boston Marathon on the space station in the harness built at NASA Glenn on the treadmill. Can you just share with us a little bit of some of that, or maybe some other funny moment that you experienced in your
I'm not going to say that was the brightest moment of my life. I've had a couple silly marathon moments. The first one I ever ran was actually Boston, and so my feet were nice and ready for the run in Pax River, because when I ran that one, I was complaining a little bit to my mom. My Slovenian tough mother. I was out there mowing the lawn, and I was going to go to the Naval Academy, and so I was like, this will be the last year that the Boston Marathon is happening, and I didn't get to run it. Just very dramatic 17-year-old. And she's like, well, put your shoes on, let's go. And I was like, oh, okay. So we jump in our station wagon. She drives me to the starting line, says, good luck, I'll see you. And here's a quarter. And so I shoved it in my basketball shoe, and I started running. And I was like, okay, here we go to live. I got to about the halfway point, and my mom met me because that's where our town was. And I said, I think I'm done. And this other guy came up next to us also. She has this pre-Gatorade type stuff with her that she got my mom's pretty resourceful. She ran into the hospital, said, give me something for my daughter. And so she grabbed something, I don't know what it was. We both took a sip of it, and I said, I think I'm done. He goes, no, let's go. We got to finish. She goes, yeah, get going. I'll find you. Mind you, this isn't the day before cell phones. And you think about the thousands of people who are running into Boston during this race, and somehow we ended up finding each other at the end of it. And I attribute some of my toughness to my mom. My dad, I contribute maybe some of my book smartness to my dad, because he was an amazing individual. Like I mentioned, came over here essentially by himself on the boat. Eating cheese because he didn't know anything else that was on the menu on the QE2 at that time. Anyway, so I think the foundation that we have from our parents and from our teachers and all those people around us really turns us into the people that we are. And maybe sometimes we have a lapse of thought and run a marathon on a treadmill on the space station. But really the point of all of that was to highlight that physical fitness is really important too. Being smart or doing well in school and being adventurous is great. Also being athletic is really important, and putting athletics into your daily life and how important that is just for your general health is something that I wanted to highlight. And that's one of the reasons why I did that. I didn't do it again. I'm getting older. I said once was enough. Maybe a 5K is good, 10K at times, but that's enough. But it's good to have your whole life very athletic.
Awesome. Thank you, Sunny.
Amazing. All right, we are about to begin the audience Q&A for our live stream audience. I'm Cynthia Connolly, Director of Programming here at the City Club. Today we're joined by two NASA astronauts, Sunny Williams and Doug Wheelock, to mark Ohio Space Week. We do welcome questions from everyone, City Club's members, guests, students, and those joining via our live stream at cityclub.org. If you'd like to text a question for Sunny or Doug, please text it to 330-541-5794, and our City Club staff will try our best to work it into the program. A quick reminder to keep your questions short, to the point, and actually a question so we can get to as many as possible. And I really encourage our students to lean in on this moment. May we have the first question, please?
Yeah, hi. I'm with the International Women's Air and Space Museum just on the road at Berkeley Front Airport. And we have one of Sunny's shirts on display that she generously donated to us. So.
I hope I washed it.
I think you did. Anyhow, my question is for both Sunny and Doug, both of you veterans of space on Space Station. And Space Station is going to be coming to an end. 2030 is the year where we're here. It's going to be coming back to Earth. So, if you could bring one item back from the space station and have it on display to share with people, to explain about life up on Space Station, what would it be and why?
Ooh, this is a tough one. There's so many good things up there. I mean,
Yeah.
some of it doesn't smell good. Back to the washing thing. But probably something from the kitchen for me. Maybe that's just typical of the way I grew up, but something that shows how because the kitchen was very important to all of us. It's where we all get together. We gather there, usually not every meal, but at least once a week. All of our international partners either come down to our kitchen or the Russian kitchen and tell stories and do karaoke sometimes and other things like that. But so probably something, I think, from either the Russian end of the space station kitchen or ours for me.
Yeah.
I'd have to think of it specifically, though.
Because there is so many things that. One thing, I took an Ohio State flag up there like 15 years ago or so.
The Ohio State?
The Ohio State flag. Did you see it up there? There's an Ohio State flag. Anyway, it's stranded somewhere in space.
It's stranded up there.
For 20 years. I think I would bring something back from the potty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a ham-fisted test pilot, and so it was one of my probably 2 weeks into a 6-month stay on the station. I was up there with one of our classmates, Tracy Caldwell Dyson and Shannon Walker. So both brilliant PhD scientists. And I was not, am not. And I was doing some science one day in a glove box and kind of sweating, reading the procedure, doing it, rereading. And Shannon came up to me, she said, potty's broken. I'm thinking like, ooh, we need to fix the potty. She said, if you fix the potty, I'll do all of your science for the rest of the day. Dude, that is we did the 0G high five,
Yeah.
And I went and it took me about an hour and a half, and I started with Houston, we have a problem, It took about an hour and a half to fix the potty on the space station, and I figured out in that hour and a half is like, if you're trapped in a spaceship with 6 other people, 5 other people, and you can fix the potty, you are like truly a guardian of the galaxy. So I think I would bring back just a little trinket and put it in a shadow box, probably.
What goes in comes out.
That's it. I learned to be a great plumber up there. I get home and my wife says, "How about fixing that faucet?"
Hi, my name is Matthew Young. I'm the astronomy teacher from Euclid High School, so I'm here with Table 8, some of my astronomy students from your native home place. My question is, you've talked wonderfully about resilience, especially I love how you sent that message out to our students. But there's one thing that's always I've wondered about in space is resilience over the things you can't control. For example, if you're in your spacesuit and you have an itch on your nose or something, or you're sleeping weird, or the potty issue. I thought it was a great segue to this. How did you prepare yourself to adapt to those discomforts, if you will?
I'll take that one.
Yeah, sure. So it's a little bit like a camping trip, right? So you've all been on a camping trip and you haven't been really comfortable the whole time because maybe it's too hot or it's too cold or the food, all of a sudden some crappy food that you would never eat at home tastes like the best food ever. Sort of similar to being up in space, right? So you're going to go through some of the little discomforts. We actually practice for this on a quote-unquote camping trip, the National Outdoor Leadership School, where we try to go with our crewmates and try to understand a little bit more about leadership, followership, and some of those discomforts that you're talking about. So it's a good training to get ready to be able to do that. But yes, on my first flight, I will say I had this little hair in the face type of issue in the spacesuit. I had really long hair when I launched. I cut my hair on the Space Shuttle Discovery because I wanted to give it to Locks of Love. And then I had short hair for like the first time in my life. And I was like, since I was at the Naval Academy, I suppose. But I thought for sure short hair will just be blup, and stay behind in the little cap that we have. But short hair, and I had trained where I put everything in a braid, right? So it was behind my head, so it was never in my face in the pool. But with short hair, it was too short to make a braid, and all of a sudden, all these pieces kept going like this in my face, and there's definitely video of me going, spending a lot of time doing that. But, you just sort of have to deal with it. You could still see, right? And I could do whatever I needed to do, and I had a moment of rest, do a little bit like that. So you just have to adapt. You're there, you're in the moment. My nose runs sometimes. I have a tissue with me. We have this piece on the front of our spacesuits where you can Valsalva because the pressure changes. Well, it ends up being a nose itcher thing. So you'll see people sometimes doing that, and that's what's going on in there. But a spacewalk, just for example, it's every range of emotion that you can have. I think you're cold, you're hot, you're excited because you just got something done that you thought was going to be really hard, and then something easy doesn't work and you're beating yourself up over it, and then you're hungry, and then you have to pee. I mean, it's just like this roller coaster of emotions, and we deal with it by practicing a little bit in the pool, practicing on the Knowles trips, trying to mentally think about what things that can happen, and working through the issues that you're going to have, because you also know nothing's going to work exactly as planned. I think we all realize that. We all recognize that. So you just have to always have like a little bit of a backup plan or a little resilience to just push through those hair in the face.
Love that. Thank you.
My name's Michael.
Michael
What did it look like when in the first time you were in space?
Time we were
in space, yeah. Michael's a decade, by the way.
I know. And Michael and I are buddies. We met earlier. And you told me, Michael, that if we had a rocket out here, I asked you if you'd go to space with me if we had a rocket outside. And he was brave enough to say, yes, let's go. So thank
Awesome.
you, Michael. Yeah. So and he wanted to know
What's it, first time in space?
like?
What's it like? It's the first time in space.
Yeah, so first time in space, it was magical. Because I went up in the space shuttle on my first launch, and so it only takes 8 minutes to get to space. And so it's a kind of a violent ride on the rocket going uphill, but then those engines cut off, and then it's just pure silence. And I took my helmet off, and I just floated it in front of me. I took my gloves off, and they were floating there in front of me. I thought, like, this is pretty amazing. So the feeling is very much euphoric, Michael, when you first get to space. Then that kind of catches up with you after a while. You begin to learn especially after a few months up there, that everything is floating. So you have to make sure that the things you don't want floating are not floating around. But the experience, the other experience that, and Suni has experienced this as well, is when you first go on a spacewalk, a much different experience when you open that hatch and go out for the first time. And there's a handrail, a circular handrail right outside of the airlock, and the airlock actually faces toward the Earth. And so when you come out, you get a face full of Earth, when you come out. And so I came out feet first on my first spacewalk. And so my EV-1, my lead spacewalker, went out head first, and I came out with my feet, and my heart was pounding. And because I have to think of something profound to say, because I knew my mom was watching and everything, and all my friends. And so I came out, and I grabbed that handrail, and I hung there, and my first words were, that was my first word. So, and just now you have a panoramic view, and you're in your own little spaceship. And quite a dramatic difference in that moment as well. Suni, would you like to share some moments of?
Well, the first moment, it's sort of like you said, everything floating, right? So then I was on the space shuttle also in the mid-deck, flying around, turning our rocket into a spacecraft, which means like opening a potty, getting the sleeping bags out, making sure the galley work. Everybody needs something to drink. So we were just flying back and forth, me and my friend Bob Kirby, and then our commander called us up to the flight deck, and they were the commander and the pilot are in their seats because we have more to do as we get circularized and in the orbit around Earth. And it came up, and there's the window, because we didn't have a window on the bottom, on the mid-deck. I looked out the window, I was like, oh my God, it's round. It really is. So no of those flat Earth people in this audience. It's really round, but it was just incredible. It was beautiful to see your planet from that perspective. Like I was mentioning, this is one planet. This is where we all live. Every plant, every person, every animal that you know is right here. It's a little bit overwhelming when you think about it. It's like, wow, incredible. And then he put my astronaut wings on and he said, now get back to work. I flew down to the mid-deck again, and I was flying around because I flew up and flew down, and then I threw up. So very anticlimactic moment, actually.
And Michael, the Earth, looking at it from outside especially, and you look at it, the backdrop of the emptiness and darkness of space, it looks like an explosion of color in the daylight. I thought back when I was your age, or a little bit younger actually, I used to dream about what it would be like to live on another planet. Back then, Pluto was a planet, so Pluto was my favorite planet. I think it should still be a planet. But I used to dream about living on another planet. And I thought to myself in those moments when I looked on the Earth, I thought like, man, if I had been a kid, like growing up on Mars or something, and I had a telescope and could look out into the night sky and see this beautiful planet, this explosion of color in the darkness, how much more vivid my dreams would have been when I was your age, cool. Michael, I want to go to that place, that beautiful planet. So Pluto used to be my favorite planet, but now Earth is my favorite planet. So.
Hi, my name is Anna Brandt. Thank you both for being here. you mentioned going into space. What's the transition like coming back to Earth, both physically and I imagine after being gone for months, it's kind of a tough transition in other ways too to come back to Earth?
It's terrible. No, it's hard. It's harder, I think, to come back to Earth than it is to go to space. Physically, mentally too, I think, honestly, just because it's a big change, particularly when you're up in space for a long period of time. I remember just on the mental side, mentally challenging side, I came back on my first mission, and at that point in time, we only had 3 people on the space station. So you're only up there with 2 other people for a long time. And you come back, and it was a pretty quick transition at that point in time, too, to come back to see everybody. We landed at Edwards Air Force Base. We got on an airplane, and we flew back to Houston. And then there's a hangar full of people there who are friends and family and coworkers that you hadn't seen for a long time. And I literally felt my heart like beating because I didn't know what it was like to be around people. I was like, oh my God, there's people, there's people, there's people. But that just took a little bit to get used to. I think the overwhelming sensory motion of people talking, and you're listening to somebody, watching a video, and hearing what's going on in the world. I think was a little tough, but it wears pretty quick. My husband wouldn't let me get away with being a baby for too long. Anyway, but the physical part is also a little tougher. You probably saw us coming out of the Dragon on a stretcher. Also, Soyuz, when we came back from that, you see us in seats being taken to the tent. It's not like we can't walk, right? We have exercise equipment up there. We have a treadmill, we have a bike, we have advanced resistive exercise device where we can actually lift weights with a bar. And so you can do deadlifts and squats, and we do all that for loading for your bone density and muscle mass. So people are strong when they come back. Actually, I think I was a little stronger than I am now. But it's all those little balance muscles, the small muscles in your neck that hold your head up. All of that has to get re-engaged. About a month or so for that to happen. And that manifests itself in me as being pretty tired, as well as going to the physical rehab, to get all that worked out with our trainers. But then for me, that's the biggest chunk was over. But then it takes me a little while, and I'm not going to say it's age, to get my fast twitch muscles going. I'm a little slow right now, but we'll get there.
Yes.
So I think it's a harder transition, but I think we look pretty normal, right?
You do.
You do.
No, I wanted to add to that everything is floating in space, including your clothes on you. And when you're out on the spacewalk, you're floating inside of your suit. So everything visually is floating. So it's hard you have like motion parallax type depth perception, judgment, and things like that. Those are just really kind of coming back to life when you come back. Also, when your clothes are floating on you, all these little receptors on the bottoms of your feet, just different nerve endings all over your body, those now have to support like a shirt hanging on you or a spacesuit hanging on you. And it seems trivial, but boy, those synapses are firing. And so you could feel like, it's almost like when your foot falls asleep and it's just coming, all those tingly, you could feel that sort of all over your body, and when these nerve endings coming back to life with the clothes now sitting on your shoulders. So yeah.
You mentioned that when you first time you saw the Earth from the space, how it made you feel. And if you go back 60, 70 years, the first time that we went to space, all of the things about Earth Day, about environmental protection, came out of that vision. And also at the same time, the immigration from the southern hemisphere started happening with Sunita and her father coming here. How do we go back to that sense of the world being one, and how do we get back to thinking that we need to protect this Earth as our home?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Great question. It's going to take all of us, by the way, but I'm going to let you tackle.
Yeah. I think we're actually living in a really great age of communication that allows us actually to feel like one. Wherever people are, we can be in touch with them, we can be in contact with them. That's pretty awesome, that's pretty powerful. And so global views, I think, are easily transmitted that way. and that's good and bad, right? How do we get people to understand that they need to protect this planet? I think getting more and more people to go to space is a really good way to do that. It's the perspective that we just talked about, taking as many pictures and bringing that video back to life to everybody here on the planet and letting people see it. We'll be showing, by the way, again, it's a little bit of advertisement tomorrow at the Great Lakes Science Center, some of the video that we took while we were up in space. And this is how we get people to understand what our planet looks like. We saw the most, what a great time to be up in space last summer. We had the most incredible aurora that makes you really stop and think not only that this is like the only planet I know where people are, but also like what other energy is in the universe? What is happening? Our space station flew right through the middle of the aurora. Last summer, it came lower than it usually is, right, in the northern hemisphere. And you see this wave of green all around us. Not only that, you see reds and purples, things we haven't seen in a while, which made me really think about like what else is happening in the universe, in the environment here that's influencing our planet. And so being able to be a communicator about what we saw, trying to get space companies and organizations flying more and more people to space is a great thing because more and more people will have that perspective. I'm psyched for Katy Perry. I'd love to go and have a conversation with Katy Perry about her impressions when she got to go up and see the planet, see the roundness of the planet. And I'd love for everybody to have a lap around the planet. I think it would really change our perspectives, change our attitudes, change our feelings about each other, because this is it. So we'll do the best we can. I think everybody else needs to help us communicate it as well. I'm not sure any other way but to change the human heart to think about the planet in that regard.
Perfect. Nothing to add. Perfect. Absolutely.
Hello, thank you so much for coming to speak with us. My name is Kate. I'm a therapist, and I'm really interested in relational dynamics. And so I apologize for my ignorance about this, but on the space station, is there a room, if you get upset with your fellow astronaut, to go into and cool off? Or how do y'all deal with the interpersonal dynamics when you're in such close quarters and you can't escape, and drive away or something? So I was just curious about that. Thank you.
It's a great question, too.
Yeah, we do have, on the space station, we have a crew quarters, and it's about the size of a phone booth. And for those of you that don't know what a phone booth is,
there's one or two in here.
Which a lot of students I'm finding out nowadays. It's like, what's a phone booth? I was like, okay, well, so it's about that size, and that's sort of your own little cubby. Everything else is a common area, so, yeah, they help us with interpersonal relations, and the thing I wanted to also, I don't know if Suni was able to experience some of these things, but the other part of this emotional impact is the feelings of isolation, the feelings of being alone, and you're thinking, but I think to myself, snap out of it. You've got like thousands of people on the ground that their sole job is to keep you alive, kind of thing. But you tend to forget that when you're isolated. And I'm sure Suni had moments like this where you just feel like, I wonder if anybody ever even knows I'm out here, kind of thing, And so when you look at the Earth, this really impacts you because you're out sort of away from your home, and you see it there in silence, kind of you're orbiting, and so you see all the amazing light show at night and the beautiful colors of the planet, and life is going on without you there. And so we practice and we communicate with our families and therapists on Earth as well, and we try to find a way to stay connected to the planet. I happen to use the ham radio. I had no idea it was going to be, before I went, they said, like, hey, would you like to get your ham radio license? I was like, I'm not sure. I've never operated a ham radio. Well, it's an emergency communication device. In case all else fails, we have a ham radio on board, and we have emergency communication stations across all the continents. And I thought, like, I think I need to do that. So I got my ham radio license, and I went to space. I was there for about 2 weeks. I thought, I should pick up that ham radio, And And I picked up that ham radio. I said, any station, this is NA1SS, the International Space Station. And there's like a flood of calls. It came back up to the station, and it started an odyssey. And that was the way I stayed connected with the planet. So to directly enter, I think we all need to develop our own way of staying connected to the planet. We're obviously with each other, 24/7. And so you have to work on those skills as well. But staying connected to the planet helps ground you as well, I found anyway. So
yeah, I would entirely agree. And I think about this as a challenge in the next generation as we get ready to go further away from low Earth orbit. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. So communications, how are we going to have that bridge between wherever people are in space back to Earth? Glenn Research Center is working on this as well, and it will be a challenge for this next generation. We're a generation now of people who are on their phones all the time, looking at stuff, reading messages, texting people, and that might not be the case in the future. So people are going to have to practice and work on this and figure out some strategies of how we're going to be staying happy and healthy while we're up in space, because it's a great point. I think, being in the military, both Doug and I are both in the military, and we've been on detachments, and we're a little bit older when we didn't have cell phones, and we know that it was a little bit harder, but there's ways, to combat some of that loneliness, but with camaraderie, with other aspects of trying to, talk to people on Earth that you don't even know, like Wills did with ham radio. We could call to our families and stuff like that, but they're not always awake. So ham radio, what a great way to be able to just contact the Earth at any point in time, wherever you are over the Earth, and just talk to human beings. It's really a needed thing.
I am also a therapist, and my question really is related to hand movements, and I've helped people with how you manipulate the environment. Tell us your experience of hand preparations and exercises and training you had, and working in the gravity.
So I'm not exactly sure the point of the question, but I'm just reflecting back on doing spacewalks, as they say, on the space station. Spacewalks on the moon are going to be different. We're actually going to be walking, and we need suits that are able to do that, sort of like the Apollo era. So we're learning more about suits, and we're making advanced suits. But on the space station, which Doug and I both have done spacewalks, it was very hand intensive, right? So you're actually moving from one place to another. Gloves are super important. Not only on spacewalks, but also in a spacecraft as you're trying to manipulate the controls or switches or whatever. And we spend a lot of time on gloves to get back this human grip on whatever we're going to do. It's a little in contrast, I think, to the Russian spacesuit, which operates at a higher pressure. Some of their tools and things are optimized for not like a normal human grip, maybe just a lot easier to turn wheels or whatever they're going to do on the outside of the space station. When they're doing electrical connectors, they're a lot easy. Maybe it's just a twist. It's not getting your hand in there and doing specific hand tasks. So interesting question. As I'm talking, I'm learning, thinking about these things myself, is like, how are we going to design space suit gloves in the future? It depends on the tasks that we have, and it depends on the activity that we're going to have. We can change it. It doesn't have to be exactly like what we do on Earth. It could be something else, just as another idea. But hands are super important.
Yes, and I wanted to point out what Suni was talking about on the spacewalk. We practice underwater in the pool, and it's like a CrossFit workout for 6 hours. In space, that works against you because we have drag in the water, we have viscosity, and so we're neutrally buoyant. We're not. So it's like a workout for 6 hours. Yep. In space, you can't do that because you'll overcorrect and get PIO. So it's almost like a spacewalk is like a ballet on your fingertips. Mm-hmm. It's just light touch here and there. The minute you grab onto something, if you're in 0G or micro G, you begin to oscillate because our muscles are trying to hold us firm or keep us from falling, or that fear of falling. And so it's very, very light touch control. So like a ballet on your fingertips.
Except when you're trying to get a big box off, then you get the crowbar out.
Right. You get the crowbar out, yeah. Or you start hammering on something.
Then you go back to the Neanderthal in all of us, right?
Yeah.
On that note, please, Sunny Williams and Doug Wheelock. Forums like this one are made possible thanks to generous support from individuals like you. You can learn more about how to become a guardian of free speech at cityclub.org. I know there was a lot of questions here in the audience that we did not get to. The good news is they are going to be at Discovery Days at the Great Lakes Science Center Friday and Saturday, free admission. Please definitely check that out, and you'll get more time with Sunny and Doug. Today's forum is presented with generous support from Cleveland State University's Washkewitz College of Engineering. Thank you so much, Dean. And of course, our gratitude to Kirsten Ellenbogen and her phenomenal team at the Great Lakes Science Center with their programming partnership for today and for having us celebrate Ohio's Space Week. Of course, thank you to the team at NASA's Glenn Research Center for making today possible. And we would like to welcome all of our students joining us from Campus International School, Davis Aerospace and Maritime High School, Euclid High School, and Warrenville Heights High School. And also thank you to the guests at the tables hosted by Cleveland State University's College of Engineering, Cuyahoga Community College, Great Lakes Science Center, and John Carroll University. Thank you again to Sunny and Doug and to our members and friends of the City Club. I'm Cynthia Connolly, and this forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.